you may have seen that there was a letter released where other states have been urging Caterpillar to move to their state. And so we've had other examples you may have seen in the news since we increased the income tax of other governors saying, hey, why don't you guys move to our state? And so I would like to, as a matter of fact, personally thank Governor Scott Walker of Wisconsin for, first of all, making us look normal again in Illinois, because we had gone through some phases there where we were a little dysfunctional. But the fact is that Governor Christie from New Jersey and Governor Daniels and Governor Walker, they all said, you know, Illinois raised their income tax, why don't you move to our state? So all we did was to take a look at their taxes. And it turns out that, certainly in the case of Wisconsin, certainly in the case of New Jersey, which is the highest taxes in the nation of any state, that our taxes are still lower than theirs. In the case of our corporate rate in Illinois is 7%, Wisconsin's is 7.9%, Indiana's is 8.5%, Iowa's goes as high as 12%. So it was important, I think, for us to, in light of the fact that we raised the taxes, to try to put things in perspective for businesses as well. And when we had that lunch with Doug Oberhelman from Caterpillar, what I remember him saying was, first of all, the Caterpillar's expected to have a record profit this year, and I hope they do. But also, he wanted to make sure that there was stability in state government. He said, if you guys just tell us, give us a 4-year plan, and tell us what you're going to do, that would be very helpful. So that's exactly what we did. We have a 4-year plan, because it's a 4-year increase in the income tax. And so for those of you who are skeptical that the temporary nature of the income tax is that it's not really temporary, well, the fact is, I get to say this because I've been in the General Assembly for so long, the previous tax increases all came under Republican governors. First one was Governor Ogilvie, the next two were Governor Thompson, and the fourth one was Governor Edgar. And in both cases, Governor Thompson's tax increase was temporary. I was here for both of them. And the first one expired after 18 months, and it was during a recession, I want to say 1983. And then Governor Edgar ran against candidate Hardigan, and they debated whether or not the second Thompson temporary income tax should become permanent. And Edgar said we should make it permanent. And Hardigan said we should let it go back down. And Edgar won the election. So we voted again to keep the tax rate where it is. So the point is, if you're concerned about the temporary nature of this tax, it will expire unless the legislature votes to keep it, or lower it to a lower amount, or expand it. And that's all going to happen after the next election for governor. And that's what our intention was. But in the meantime, we were concerned about the business climate in Illinois. And the business climate in Illinois is not just about tax rates. It's about other factors. And stability was the one thing that I heard from the CEO of Caterpillar. You guys got to pay your bills. You can't do business with people and then not pay their bills. And that's what we've been doing. We have right now $8.5 billion worth of outstanding bills that we owe to people who do business with the state and local governments. And we have to pay that. In fact, by law, we have to pay that by September 1st. Or all of those folks have to go to the Court of Claims. They have to literally sue the state in order to get paid. And obviously we want to avoid that. The other reason why we had to raise these taxes was to, going forward, stop borrowing more money. And the last 2 years, we've had to borrow money to pay our pension systems. And we've done that. This year, we're not going to do that. We're going to pay the money into the pension systems that we owe. And so, while you're here, we're in the process of doing our state budget, and the governor's introduced budget was out of whack. We looked at it. We feel that we have to probably cut over $1 billion, maybe $1.3 billion, out of our state budget, which is about a $35 billion budget, just to give you an example of how much we have to cut. So we're in the process of doing that. We are going to use a kind of a new way of looking at the budget called budgeting for outcomes. Not just look at how much money we spent the previous year, but rather look at each purpose for which we spend money and decide whether or not it's working. And if it's not working, we will cut it out. So, and by the way, we also should say that we appreciate the fact that there's been cooperation. Obviously, I'm a Democrat. Republicans, the last couple of years have not, in my opinion, participated in the budget process. They've participated in many other reforms that we've passed, which I would just briefly touch on. But in terms of the budget, they weren't really involved. They said, you guys are in charge. It's the worst recession in our lifetime. You figure it out. And we basically said to the governor, Governor, here's all the money we have. We're going to appropriate it to you, or authorize you to spend it in any way you best can. You figure it out. And so the reason why people may think we haven't really cut much in the last couple of years is because of the way in which the money was appropriated. But this year it's going to be different. We're going to line item the budget the way the legislature is supposed to, prioritize our expenditures. We're going to have to cut over $1 billion. And the Republicans have given us some good ideas on how to achieve those savings. Some of their ideas have serious problems because they violate contracts, they violate the Constitution, or they violate court orders. And so there's, in our opinion, kind of an exaggerated amount of money that's available for cutting. But we think that we can definitely use some of their other ideas and go through it and become more efficient. When I talked briefly about the fact that we have cooperated with Republicans, we have accomplished a lot of things which will really make our state more business-friendly, if you will. One of the things we did was to pass a pension reform that no other state had done. We had very little credit for it, but we cut the future benefits for future state workers, city workers, everybody. And we did that, which will in the long term save us billions of dollars. The McCormick Place reform was not easy because we had unions that were opposing us on that, as well as the pension reforms. But we took them on. We said, the ball game's over. The message are leaving our state. We need to make sure you guys stay. So we passed those bills, as well as a Medicaid reform, along with the Republicans. So we did have a lot of cooperation and a lot of good pieces of legislation that we can point to, again, with the exception of the budget, and that's something we hope to correct this year. The one area that Mr. Oberhelman from Caterpillar and I would agree on, and which is a main concern to the state, and where we do not compare well with these other states, is in the area of workers' compensation. We have some of the highest workers' comp insurance rates in the nation. So I didn't know much about workers' comp before. Senator Radonio and I, my Republican counterpart, had hearings in December and in January, and we've decided that we need to try to pass a bill. But it's really difficult politically, and it's not a Republican versus a Democrat. It's a number of different players involved. So you've got hospitals, doctors, unions, trial lawyers. That group of folks is pretty happy with the way it is now. But retail merchants and chambers of commerce, obviously, and manufacturers are very concerned, and they want some reforms. When we looked into it, we found out that the amount of money we pay to doctors and hospitals is the second highest in the nation. Only second, I guess, to Alaska. We have a fee schedule, a medical fee schedule, that just pays out an enormous amount of money compared to other states and compared to what your own health insurance system pays out to these same physicians. So that's why it's not a Republican versus Democratic issue. It's a real puzzle, and we've been trying to push all the folks that don't want to change to see if we can come up with a solution. So I'm really, really dedicated to doing this. Senator Radonio and I have spent hours together trying to fashion a bill, and we hope that we can accomplish that before the end of this session.